So there's a YouTuber by the name of Big Joel, or as he calls himself on his side channel where he does like shorter reaction stuff, Little Joel. And I like him. Big Joel / Little Joel or Medium Joel, all the Joels are good Joels. I think Joel is a cool dude. Anyway, so he posted a video here, Deradicalization and YouTube. And I wanted to react to it. I'm curious what his thoughts are on this topic, because one of the things I pride myself on the most on this show is that, you know, anytime I've gone to like Politicon or anywhere publicly where there's audiences, I do get a decent number of people who come up and they basically say, thank you, I was going down the wrong path and I was listening to whoever, Ben Shapiro, Steven Crowder, back in the day, Stefan Molyneux or whoever. And, you know, you got me out of that. And that's always like some of my proudest moments. It's that. Anyway. So here's Big Joel / Little Joel / Medium Joel talking about deradicalization on YouTube.
Hey, everybody. So I've always had kind of a trepidation about the concept of deradicalization. For those who don't know, in like 2017 to 2019, there emerged a group of YouTubers who people started calling breadtubers, and I was one of them. I was to some extent one of them. I was like a D-list breadtuber. And the main thing about breadtubers, like one of the main sales pitches of breadtube.
By the way, let me just say, it's funny because when people talk about breadtube or lefttube or whatever you want to call it, I'm never included in it. And I just find that kind of funny. Because I've been doing my show since 2012 full time, and everybody knows like the topics I cover, but I'm never included in it. And I don't know if I'm like bitching and moaning here about like, that's not fair, or like I should be included in that. And I don't know, like I don't know how I feel about that. I just find it funny. I mean, I guess you could say I'm in a little bit of a different lane because I do news and politics and commentary. You know what I mean? I almost have more in common with like old school radio shows than I do with just being like a video essayist or a breadtuber or a debate bro. Like I don't really neatly fit into any of those categories. You know what I'm saying? But I just always found that interesting that I'm never like included in that group, even though you could argue that maybe we were, you know, not just me, but the Young Turks and whoever were some of like the original quote unquote breadtubers. But I'm not sure I like the term breadtube anyway, so all that whole rant was for naught because I don't even think I want to be included in that. And I also don't view myself as part of some, you know, specific niche group. I think I don't think I really fit into any particular category. Anyway, this is a random side rant. Let's continue.
Was de-radicalizing people, making people not radical. And I always hated it. I always hated that. I always saw this claim being made of my work and thought to myself, that ain't true. I'm not de-radicalizing shit. But the thing is, I was never able to put my finger on why I didn't like this word until like 5 minutes ago. And then I scrambled at my phone to make this video like a little content weasel. So here's the thing. Whenever people talk about de-radicalizing, whenever people claim that work like mine de-radicalize them, I always feel this inner angst inside of me, this ghost, that tells me that when people are using the word radical, when they talk about falling down the alt-right pipeline, in many cases, not all, but many cases, what they're talking about is that they, as a 14-year-old boy, watched anti-SJW YouTubers on the internet. That they watched a bunch of cringy anti-SJW YouTubers who said a bunch of lame shit about women and minorities, who enjoyed them, who enjoyed how edgy they were, and who were starting to enjoy that sort of thing. And I gotta be honest with you, I think many of the people for whom this is the case, they just kind of grew up. They just kind of grew up. One day, they looked at Sargon of Akkad and they said, oh, this guy is the stupidest man I've ever seen in my life. Oh, this man is the absolute dumbest human being I've ever seen in my life. And what's more, he's very lame. Like, he's lame and dumb. And you saw that. You were mature enough to see this fact about him. And then you stopped being into it. You stopped being into it. It was a phase. It was a phase where you were watching YouTube content. You know what I mean? And here's the thing. I'm not trying to illegitimize anybody's political story. I'm not trying to tell you that you're worse or a shitty person because you liked Gamergate in 2016. Like, yes, obviously that sucked. But we can get over that. We can get over that together. But my problem with the narrative of de-radicalization is that it almost causes us to legitimize these political identities. That it treats a 14-year-old boy who was surfing 4chan and watching Sargon of Akkad and Teal Deer as like a real legitimate, meaningful political identity. And it isn't one. If it didn't add up to anything, if you just had some shitty thoughts from YouTube videos that you saw, that's what happened. That's what happened to you. And I worry that this narrative of radicalization toward the right, followed by de-radicalization, kind of causes us to not just be able to sit with the fact that in our past, when we were teenagers, we were just cringe little guys. You were just a cringe guy who liked cringy content and made edgelord jokes and sucked ass. That's what you were. You know, for some of you, that's what you were. On some level, you just got to live with that now. You got to own that part of yourself that for everyone does. That 14-year-old inside of you who's just sucked ass, who everyone hated and who you hated yourself. Everyone hated you and you hated yourself. You were lame and everyone hated you. And that's the truth, because you sucked. Because you sucked then. I am genuinely happy and moved when I see people developing politically in certain ways because of things I say. And again, I'm not trying to shame anybody in my audience, but at some point, I really think it does benefit us to be able to sit with ourselves and say, I wasn't going on some big political journey. I sucked. I sucked ass. I think there's power in that. A power that is not caught by the word de-radicalize.
Yeah, okay, so, I kind of agree with the main point, which is, for a lot of people who were quote-unquote getting radicalized, at some point, they just grew up, they just matured, and they were like, yeah, I don't really believe those things that I thought I believed, or I'm not as, I'm not as into it, I'm not as, devoted to it, it doesn't define me, it's not my identity. I do think that's probably the majority of people who fit this description. Somebody who is super into anti-SJW cringe content, going after feminists, owning the feminists or owning the libs or whatever. I think he's right. I think that most people who grew out of that did exactly that. They just sort of grew out of it on their own. And I think what people underestimate in this space is the extent to which normiedom impacts people. So you could think of yourself as I'm a conservative person or I'm a Republican or whatever. And then when your mom who works 2 jobs gets served an eviction notice and the landlord is a piece of shit to her, all of a sudden you turn into Che Guevara on that issue. I think that real life impacts people's politics a lot more oftentimes than what happens online. I mean, I guess my one disagreement would be to say that there is certainly some percentage who truly did change their mind and sort of de-radicalize after consuming content that refuted, rebutted, countered the Ben Shapiro's, the Steven Crowder's, the Stefan Molyneux's, the Nick Fuentes's, whoever, right? So I don't want to overstate the extent to which that happens, but I do think he's slightly understating the extent to which that happens. It's not the case that 100% of people who have that story just sort of grew out of it. It's some percentage, maybe a majority, probably a majority, that just grew out of liking anti-social justice warrior cringe stuff. But there is some percentage, I don't know the number, that it did take a little bit of a kick in the butt. It did take a little bit of a charismatic presentation and counter arguments in the other direction to sort of shake them out of it, wake them up, etc. And the point about people, realizing that you went through a period of sucking ass. Yeah, I mean, I would contend everybody sucks ass and has sucked ass at one point or another. This is a funny segment. This is fun. We just keep saying the word suck ass. That's fun. Anyway. Yeah, I mean, everybody's on their own political journey, right? And with some people, it's just based on their normiedom and their real life experiences, and that shapes their politics. With other people, it's being a political junkie and being knee deep into the online world of politics. So different people come to it in different ways. But yeah, I mean, nobody's perfect. We all went through phases, right? And it is what it is. I guess. In conclusion, my final point would be, I think he's right. He's just overstating it slightly. He's right that people just grew out of it, so we shouldn't suck ourselves off too much and give ourselves too credit if we're part of the quote-unquote bread tubers who quote-unquote de-radicalize people. But I would say you can give yourself a little bit of credit. Un poquito. Because again, that's my biggest point of pride is when I do hear stories, somebody come up to me and say, hey man, you got me out of going down a bad rabbit hole and I really appreciate it. And not even me, but they will tell you in no uncertain terms, yes, that's what happened. And so, look, I'm sure Big Joel / Little Joel / Medium Joel / Oversized Joel / Un Poquito Joel, I'm sure he did the same thing with a lot of people too. And he's just sort of downplaying it a little bit here. But in terms of the numbers, yeah, I'm not a hero. He's not a hero. Other people who've done this and sparked that in somebody, we're not necessarily heroes. We're just dudes. We're just people talking our mind online and letting the chips fall where they may. So yeah, that's it. I guess the final point is, I don't even need to make that point. I was just going to say that everybody, like, even the idea of a pipeline in this direction or a pipeline in that direction, that's certainly real for some people. Like there's a pipeline to the alt-right or a pipeline to the left. Like that is true for some people, but for the majority of people, like there are no pipelines. There is no like grand journey where you end up and here's my final place. Like no, we're all humans. We're messy. We have different ideologies that are all over the map, and everybody's like their own person with their own thing. I think that the pipeline in or out of the alt-right or the far left or whatever, I think that's a little bit too simplistic a narrative anyway, even though in some cases it's real. All right, there you go. There are my babbling thoughts. Everybody go give Little Joel and Big Joel and Medium Joel a follow, and he's a good dude, so check him out. All right, guys, that's the show. I love y'all to death. Thank you, as always, for listening to me. I truly, truly appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. Do me a big favor. Click the like button. Click the subscribe button. We're not only cracking 1 million, we want to crack 100 million. I don't think we're going to get there, but we could try. So hook a brother up. Also, click that bell icon so you get a notification every time a video drops. You can listen to the full shows if you'd like in audio podcast form on Spotify. We post them there every time we have a show. So definitely check that out. And yeah, that's all I got for you, man. Thank you to everybody who supports the show on Patreon. You guys make it work. Thanks to everybody who supports Crystal Kyle and Friends on Substack. You guys make it work. If you'd like to support the show, links in the video description box below. I love y'all, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace. If you want to see me and Crystal Ball interview legends like Noam Chomsky, Cornel West, and more, subscribe to Crystal Kyle and Friends on Substack. $5 a month gets you the video version a day early. Remember, we take 0 ad dollars for this podcast. Or you can sign up on Substack for free and get the audio version a day later. Link in the video description box below.